Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bex Khalil, the Executive Director of United to End Homelessness here with Orange County United Way. And I want to say a huge thank you for joining us for today's community chat. We are really excited to be kicking off Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. I'm not sure if you know, but November is a time where communities around the country come together to raise awareness of issues connected to hunger and homelessness. And so this community chat today is the kickoff for our campaign. And you can find more information on what we're doing for Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week available on our website. Today, I'm really excited to be having a conversation around the connections between hunger and homelessness. And I'm really excited to be joined by two wonderful leaders from local organizations that are working to address hunger and food insecurity in our community. Today, I'll be joined by Claudia Keller, the CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank, and Mike Learakos, the president and CEO of Abound Food Care. A huge warm welcome to both of you. As we get started, I would love it if you could share a little bit about your organization and how your organization is serving residents in Orange County. And Claudia, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, thanks for having us, Bex. It's great to be here. Second Harvest has been serving Orange County for 41 years. We're one of two food banks in the county, and we serve the county through a network of about 250 partners. And our mission is to deliver dignified, equitable, and consistent access to nutritious food for those most vulnerable in Orange County.
Fabulous. You have that dialed in. That was
Right?
so succinct. Mike, can you tell us a bit about Abound Food Care?
Sure, and thank you for allowing us to be here. You are not going to hear the same dialed-in response, but Abound Food Care started and was born in Orange County as a food recovery effort over a dozen years ago, and has since morphed into identifying ways to change the food system, to optimize the food system, so that we utilize food to have its optimum impact on the health of individuals and communities and the environment. So we work collaboratively with public, private, and nonprofit sector.
That was pretty succinct. You do have that dialed in, Mike. Yeah, you're gonna thumbs up from Claudia. I would love if either of you or both of you want to jump in and explain a little bit about the OC Hunger Alliance for people who are watching today.
Mike,
Claudia, you want to lead it off?
Sure. I'll start with an introduction. The Hunger Alliance started before the pandemic, but really started to take shape during the pandemic. And it really is the collaboration between three of the largest hunger relief organizations in the county, Second Harvest, Abound, and another organization that is not here on the call today, and that's Orange County Food Bank, which is the county's other food bank here. And we really came together under the notion that we were doing similar work, related work, and that we could be stronger, we could be better if we worked together. That certainly bore itself out during the pandemic, and we've been working together ever since. And I'll let Mike tell you about some of the work and some of the things that we've accomplished since then.
Yeah, I would have to say first off that we had two large organizations in both food banks, probably had the most to lose by collaborating in some ways. So it was very impressive that they were willing to come together along with us to really look at how we could be better, where we could be more efficient, where we could have a greater impact. And luckily, because of COVID, we don't hear that very often, we were able to remain in the confines of the three of us. So it gave us an opportunity to challenge each other privately. And what came from that was not only a deep respect of everybody's respective organizations, but also a true friendship and a shared mission that we can accomplish something really special in Orange County by working together. The areas that we're starting to work in is really identifying sourcing. So in other words, it's being able to go after more food, being able to more effectively distribute it through coordinated logistics, tracking data, which is critical for what we're trying to do, and then rolling in all these different stakeholders that are connected either by food or through food. In other words, food either impacts them or has an impact on them. That's really what this goal of the Hunger Alliance, and ultimately we want to have every demographic in the county and every organization that serves those demographics represented.
And today I can say we're proud to welcome other organizations into the Alliance. We've grown. Today, sitting at the table with us is 211, Cal Optima, Meals on Wheels, OC Grantmakers. Am I leaving anybody else out, Mike? We've gotten bigger so fast. I never want to leave anybody out. I think I got it, right?
You're good.
Yeah, good.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And it's always a delight to hear something good that came from the pandemic in terms of greater collaboration. So thank you for sharing a bit about the history of that. And we did pop links in to the chat box. So if anybody wants to gather more information about the organizations that have been mentioned, the links are there. So I know in the homelessness world, we have a lot of terminology that we use and that we throw around. And we can sometimes forget that people who are outside of the homelessness world don't know what we're talking about. So I know that as we were preparing for our webinar today, it became very apparent that there are certain words and terms that are also used in your world. And so I would love to just start off our conversation today by helping ground us all in some key definitions that we hear and that are used that some of us who aren't living this day to day may be a little fuzzy on. So Claudia, I'd love to come to you first. And can you talk to us about definitions for food banks versus food pantries?
Very good, very good. Often used interchangeably, right? And it really is a matter of scale, right? So a food bank is a large entity. It can't be defined by its physical location, but a food bank exists to gather large amounts of food. Think of a supermarket headquarters or distribution center, right? A food bank has that kind of scale. We, for example, sit on 120,000 square feet in Irvine, and we distribute, this year we'll distribute 39 million pounds of food, but we do not distribute directly to the public. We distribute through a network that includes food pantries. Food pantries distribute directly to those experiencing food insecurity. And that's the major difference, is direct service and scale. Orange County has 2 food banks, and it has, by our calculation, over 500 pantries or direct distributors of food.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable to think about 2 hubs resourcing 500 different local areas of connection to access food. Thank you so much for filling us in on those definitions. Mike, I'd love to ask you, when we talk about long-term success in this work, in your world, what does that mean?
Yeah, there's another definition that we have yet to truly define, but I got to, again, give props to both food banks because their mission is to serve people. So there's different stages of success. In the short term, success is getting people access to the resources they need. In other words, access to nutrition, and that is success. But I have to hand it again to both food banks because they've adopted this long-term definition of success, which is less, meaning if we are using food to its fullest, then we have an opportunity to reduce the need. Claudia is always saying it's shortening the line, but it's an opportunity to identify that ultimately we're successful if we're distributing less food, if we're serving less families, if there are fewer people in need. That's a kind of a definition of success that we want to adopt over the long term.
Awesome, thank you. And then Claudia, I'm going to ask you for another one. So we often hear the terms hunger being used, food insecurity being used. Can you walk us through what is meant by each of these different terms?
Sure. That's an interesting one in a country like ours, right? In a relatively prosperous nation and state and county like ours. So hunger can be defined as a state, right? We all can relate to the sensation of hunger, of being hungry, right? And we can all probably safely say that hunger in its purest state, we don't see a lot of people hungry in that way we see people in third world countries, right? What we might see on television, right? Food insecurity, though, is a different definition. And food insecurity is the condition of not having access to sufficient food of an adequate quality to meet one's basic needs at all times, right? So there is a dimension of quantity, of quality, and of time. So food insecurity can be episodic. You can be food insecure at the end of the month, perhaps when your money runs out, or your shifts get cut, or if you're a college student, your funding runs out. So food insecurity is a little bit more complex and a little bit harder to see than abject hunger. I hope that helps.
That was really helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like hopefully together as we're moving deeper into our dialogue, this is going to help ground us all. Before I move us on, did any other terms pop into either of your minds that we should talk about right now? Yes, Claudia.
How about nutritional insecurity, right? Food insecurity mentions the quality of food. And I think we can all relate to what fills our tummy is not always good for us. I know I'm guilty of that, right? That donut takes away hunger, but it's not necessarily good for me. So the quality of the food that Mike mentioned is something that's very important to us at Second Harvest. And I know at Abound, we talk about providing nutritious food to those that need it. So nutritional security.
Thank you for bringing that one in. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to start talking about data. I love data. I find data fascinating. Data is so important as we're making strategic decisions, as we're advocating for solutions. And so I would love, Claudia, if you would like to start us off with walking us through some of the key data that we have around hunger issues in Orange County.
Sure. Feeding America provides us data, albeit there's a lag there, right? So right now we know by our best estimates that 1 in 10 people are experiencing food insecurity or are food insecure, and that's about 330 individuals. I think what is really shocking to people is that 1 in 8 children are, or about 85,000. The rate of food insecurity has grown alarmingly in Orange County and has grown at a rate that is faster than the state of California or the United States as a whole. Now, we here at Second Harvest, we monitor how many people that we are serving, and our rates of service at our pantries back up these numbers. So we are seeing alarmingly higher growing rates at our pantries. We monitor the average that we serve. We also are starting to monitor how often people are coming to our pantries, and we are seeing that go up as well. So the picture is not a good one right now.
Wow, 330,000 people in Orange County. That's a lot of people and 85,000 children. Mike, I know you have access to some other data from some work with equity in OC, and so I'd love to come to you to see what else you can share with us this morning.
Sure. We did a little deep dive or quick spurt in data as part of the Equity and OC effort. And it was going after the lived experiences of those individuals that are reliant on this charitable food network, and then also the organizations that serve them. And it was great data, but it also identified for us where we need to go further. So for example, we find that local is great, meaning Orange County. Regional data is important, and then there's national data, and many times there is no disconnect between them. And one thing that is glaring right now is that across the country, technology is getting us to the point where we are reducing food loss and waste, meaning we're getting better at how we produce, distribute, and process food. So there's less excess food available. That's critical for us to be able to identify how do we get that food, where is it at, how to become more effective at that food that is available. But also for us, it's important that we track food throughout the system. So for example, if we're talking about excess edible food that's recovered, we want to be able to track it all the way through to find out of that food that we're recovering, who is it feeding, how much of that food doesn't feed anybody, but goes either to divert it to another form or goes to landfill. But most importantly, we can ultimately get to a return on investment. But if we can also use that data to track the impact, now we're much further ahead. If we combined predictive analytics on the need side, we can help hopefully slow the descent into food insecurity and poverty and homelessness if we can utilize that data. And then if we can track food, then we can track the total impact that that food has on people's condition.
Wow, there's so much in what you just shared, Mike. So I know as we've been talking about this, a lot of these things were new to me. And so just hearing about how technology is revolutionizing the production of food and the impact that that is having. Can you share a little bit more, provide us with some examples of what does that look like?
Well, first of all, we have to look at it in its totality. We don't always connect the dots on the food supply side. There are areas where food systems touch on other social elements and vice versa. So it's really important that we're able to track this, be able to identify all those dots that are connected, because it's critical in allowing us to become better at what we do, serve more people.
Thank you. We talked about the need growing. Claudia, you shared that we're seeing more people coming and we're seeing people coming more frequently. Are there any other trends that we're seeing in Orange County that it would be important for people to know about?
Well, we are starting to see people coming more frequently. The charitable food system, we used to call it the emergency food system, right? But that's not what it is anymore, right? It's become quite entrenched. Because of the elevated need, because of the economic situation that we are in, we are starting to see people come on a more regular basis. And because of that, the food banks have changed the type of food that we have in the pantry system, in the food bank system. And this is not just here in Orange County, this is around the country. So you are starting to see more perishable food, so more produce, more eggs, more milk. And this is a good thing, right? We talked about nutrition. We opened a farm in 2021, right on the tail end of the pandemic in Irvine, of all places. So that is a good thing for nutrition, but that is not necessarily sustainable for the long haul. So while we are trying to make sure that we are providing the most nutritious food possible, to Mike's point, we are kind of going in a circle, right? We are providing more nutritious food. We have people that keep coming back. We need to be looking at ways to shorten the line. So as part of those efforts coupled with those efforts to meet the urgent need, which is getting good food into the hands of people, we are starting to look at ways to address the basic needs of people. So we are starting to look at how we provide wraparound services, right? Food is the front door. What do we provide that really start to address the core needs of people that are experiencing hunger? Because if they need food, they probably need something else. So that is, I believe, a growing trend in the charitable food system that Mike and I talk about a lot, that you can expect to see in the coming years, that we believe will curtail the need for food and hopefully lift others, because it's not going to be food alone that lifts people out of poverty.
Thank you for that. one of the things that I heard kind of both of you talking about is food insecurity is really highlighting other issues that are going on. It's a symptom of other things that are happening that have resulted in food insecurity for these households. Now, as I think about that, are there any misconceptions that you encounter and hear about food insecurity? I'd love to give you the opportunity to dive into this. And so, Mike, if you want to jump in first for us about some misconceptions, misperceptions, things that you hear connected to this that you'd love to set the record straight on, we'll start there.
Sure. On the supply side, especially for what we specialize in, which is the food recovery side, people think it's a linear process. It's as simple as getting food from a donor to a recipient. The reality is that it's far more complex than that. There are so many other factors that have to be considered. The quantity of the food, the type of food. Is it in demand? Is it culturally acceptable? Is it food that has throughput? Or are we just going through an effort to recover food, but we may not be distributing it, or someone may not be eating it? I think, and Second Harvest Food Bank and food banks all over the country do the heavy lifting when it comes to rescuing food from grocery stores, from retail grocery. And that is a really complicated task because you're receiving a wide variety of food and you're getting it to organizations, and it's a challenge to be able to distribute all of that. So it's not as simple as people think. The other misconception is that this can be limited to a city or a county, when the reality, what separates a county is typically a street. On one side of a street, you have one county, the other side, you have the other. If you have competing or differing approaches or players, then we tend to have some difficulties. So the misconception is that this is an easy endeavor, which it is most certainly not.
No, just as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about all of the logistics that go into this, and this is some serious operations that you are all undertaking. Claudia, what are some misconceptions that you'd like to talk through?
Well, we only have a few minutes left, but I'll start with the big ones. I think it's a lot of people believe that folks that avail themselves of the charitable food system are either unemployed or are already unhoused. The majority of people that avail themselves of the charitable food system are employed, are working families, and are actually housed. The reality is that many of them are struggling to stay housed, right? If we look logically at a family budget, your rent or your mortgage is not something you can fudge. You have to pay the whole thing. You have to pay your whole car payment. You have to pay all of your health care, all of the bills that we pay. We have to pay the whole thing every month. But the one budget that is fungible is our grocery budget, right? That we can cut back on, that we can skimp on, right? And that's the hedging that many families are doing. There's a saying in food insecurity in this sector of work that we do, and that's that rent eats first. When we talk about homelessness or the world of the unhoused, that's very visible. We see those folks struggling on the street. But what we don't see are families in their homes that don't have food or don't have enough food. So it is a hidden crisis, and we don't see folks that are about to become unhoused. So it is a difficult problem to foresee or to predict, to Mike's point, and those families can be hard to help. So I think that is something that we as a county, and we that do this work in housing and homelessness and hunger and homelessness, that's a challenge that we have and that most people don't think about. So I would offer those as two misconceptions.
Thank you so much. And, I think people don't think about addressing food insecurity as part of homelessness prevention, but it really is, as you so clearly and easily highlighted for us. As the opposite end of the spectrum, from homelessness prevention is sadly when somebody has fallen into homelessness. And Mike, I'd love to hear from you when we're thinking about people who are unhoused and we're thinking about food as the hub of health. What are some things that could be at play here for people who are unhoused, connected to food and hunger?
Yeah, it's really funny how we started with just the idea of recovering food or accessing food, and then we realized that this is really about getting people access to nutrition, as Claudia has mentioned. But when you look at those social determinants of health, we always assumed that food insecurity was one of those spokes in the wheel of those social determinants. When in reality, we learned quickly that it's the hub of the wheel. In other words, it's that one determinant that you need every day. We had a colorful state senator from Mississippi tell us once, you can be uneducated for life. Lord knows I have in-laws like that. You can be unhealthy for a period of time. You can be unhoused for a period of time, but you need to eat every day. So the idea is that we now have this attraction, which is the food. If we can get this nutritious food to people, we have an immediate impact. But if we can get other tools, resources, and services with food that also address those other conditions, now we have slowly the ability to elevate people out of that condition.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for people who are watching today, who've been motivated to buy what we've been talking about, who would like to help, I know one of the things that we've talked about is, there's, and we certainly see this in the homelessness world, right? People they want to help, they want to be useful, but sometimes we trip ourselves up because we're not fully informed on what is helpful. So what advice would you have, Claudia? I'll start with you, for somebody who's watching, who wants to be involved, who wants to help address food insecurity. How can they help?
Well, we certainly invite them to come and be familiar with our work. Come and volunteer in our distribution center or at our farm. And it's a working farm, folks. This is not a garden, it's a farm. We invite you to come and take a tour of our facilities and understand how we do our work. We do a community tour once a month. So those are two really easy ways to get involved. Or just go to our website and tool around on it and see what we do. And there's videos there you can click on. But just take that first step. But come and see us. We're friendly. We're not scary. We're near the Great Park. We invite you to come on down.
I can confirm, very friendly. Mike, how about you? What advice would you have for anybody who's watching?
Assist one of those 500 agencies that are feeding people, but also you're a consumer. And as a consumer, you have power also. When it comes to excess food, you can ask your retailer and your favorite restaurant, what do they do with excess food? You have power there, and demand portion control.
Thank you so much. And yeah, for anybody who's watching, would encourage you, as you heard, check out these organizations, find your local food pantry, reach out, ask them what they are in need of. Is it volunteer time? Is it food? What kind of food? What are the requirements that they need to have for that food? Don't bring them food that's expired. So they will be able to guide you and be able to help you to be involved in solutions for addressing food insecurity. I know that the Hunger Alliance here in Orange County has really been talking a lot about kind of a future and what you envision. And I'd love to kind of bring us to a close today to just lead into that a little bit. What is the transformational change that you can envision, that you can see, that keeps you motivated every day as you come to work? Claudia, I'll come to you first.
Well, our vision, I think, is what motivates me, and that's an Orange County with food and nutritional security for all.
Yeah, and for me, it's seeing that this entire network is working together. They're working seamlessly. They're relying on each other. They're holding each other up, and we're having an ultimate impact on elevating people out of poverty.
Oh, both of those were so beautiful. Thank you so much. Before I officially close us out, is there anything that you wanted to say today that you didn't get a chance to communicate yet?
I would just want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. Be mindful of the abundance and the good fortune that you have, and remember those that may not be as fortunate as you at this time of year.
And I could not add anything better than that.
Well, that was the perfect note to close up our conversation today. So thank you, Claudia, for those beautiful and grounding words as we enter into a busy season. And thank you so much to everybody who joined us today, for those who sent in questions in advance, for those who are watching this on YouTube. We appreciate your engagement. As I mentioned at the beginning, Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week has kicked off. We have some in-person events coming up. This Sunday, we're going to be in Fullerton from 2 till 4. We'd love to see you there. If Fullerton is not near you, don't worry. We'll be in Lake Forest on Monday night. And then if Lake Forest isn't near you, don't worry. There's a third opportunity. On Wednesday, we will be in Santa Ana. We have 3 in-person ways for you to get connected to people in real life, to have conversations around homelessness and be involved in bringing about solutions for that. We'll send an email out to everybody who registered. All of the links are going to be in that email, so don't worry if you didn't catch them in the chat box. Thank you again, Mike, Claudia, for joining me today for this conversation. This will go up on YouTube, and we will join you all again in December. Thank you, everybody.